With
Sure.
that being said, I will give you my first team. So I'll start back to front and up top. So in goal for me, Roman Berkey. Then left back across to right back. I have Duan Jones at left back. I have Rodriguez at center back, Yerson Mosquera, and Carlos Acapo at right back. In the two center mid spots, I have Edward Leuven, and I went with Aiden Morris. And then in the attack, I went for Denny Buwanga, Lucia Costa, Thiago Almada, and then at striker, I've gone for Cucho.
All right. Read back your defenders again.
Okay, I'll go left back to right back again.
Yeah.
Are you typing it? Is that why?
Yeah, I'm gonna
All
put a
right, I'll
tweet
I'll
out
go
after
slower.
this.
I'll go
I'm gonna put a
slower.
tweet out that says these were our players that we've picked and get some feedback on it. So I've got Berkey, I've got Jones,
Yes.
Rodriguez, Mosquera.
Yep. And then Carlos Acapo.
Oh, a capo.
Yeah.
Okay. Then keep going.
And then the two midfielders, I've got Leuven
Leuven.
and Aiden Morris.
Okay.
And then let me know when you're ready for
Yeah, I'm
attackers.
keep going. Yeah.
Uh, Attackers, I've gone Denny Buwanga, Lucia Costa, and Thiago Almada.
Okay, and then Cucho up top.
Acucho up top.
All right, we're relatively close. Our back line and our defenders are a bit off.
Yeah, I
Um,
knew that was as soon as you were talking about San Jose, I knew we were not going to be on the same wavelength there.
no.
But we could definitely talk about that one
Yeah.
afterwards because
Um,
I wonder if did you get statistics from more people than outside of your three teams?
yeah, of course I did.
So I'm curious if you had stats for them where they kind of fit.
Yeah, I can definitely pull those up. Let me give you mine.
Yeah.
In goal, I've got Roman Berkey as well. At right back, I've got Shaq Moore.
Ooh.
Center back, I've got Michael Boxall from Minnesota.
Michael Boxall. Oh
I'll
my God.
explain. I'll always explain. Matt Miazga as my second center back with Diego Palacios at left back. In my lone defensive midfielder, I've got Artur from Houston. In my attacking mid spot, I've got Thiago Almada, and this is where my shape lets me down in compared to yours because you've got a lot of those attacking mids just thrown in there, which is totally fair. On the left side of my team, I've got Denny Bwanga. On the right side, I've got Christian Espinoza. And then my two strikers are Hani Mukhtar and Kucha Hernandez. So just to talk about Roman Berkey here, you know where we're going. I know where you're going. You know where I'm going. Our favorite
Oh,
stat,
our favorite
our
stat.
favorite
Yes.
stat,
Yes.
PSXG. My guy absolutely lit that stat up. The first
Mhm.
overall in PSXG, positive 9.2, people.
It's
Positive
crazy.
9.2. Our loyal listeners will know what a stat, what a number that is. That is 9.2 goals saved above the expected average that he should concede. And I think he was clear by like at least 2 or 3 points in that category.
Yeah, I think so.
And he did it on the second most saves with the fifth best save percentage, sixth best goals against average. And one other stat I really liked, he was the fourth best in defensive actions outside the area. So he was playing sweeper keeper a lot too, which
Keeper, yeah.
I love that. I thought that stat was super, super cool. Um, bring this over here so that I can check some things. Um, DeJuan Jones. That's a question right there. That was your left back, right?
Yeah.
DeJuan Jones finished. Let me go ahead and just bring it on over here. Relatively low. He and I guess to for people who don't know about this spreadsheet I have, I take 10 to 15 key stats. I stress three of them by adding a multiplier. So I rank the players how they did in each stat. So minutes, tackles, dribbled by, tackle success rate, interceptions, fouls, clearances, crosses blocked, successful dribbles, passing percentage, and crosses completed. So I take all the data, I rank them one to however many I had. I think in this group I had 14. So out of the 14 that I had, I ranked them 1 to 14. And then for the specific ones, so tackle success rate, dribbles completed, and crosses completed, I'll add a stressor. So something that is like, I think this stat is more important for the player that I'm looking for. So I'm going to make this count more. and then I average that all together, and that's how I get my numbers here. Um, Diego Palacios for me finished with a 5.76 average, whereas DeJuan Jones finished with a 9.28, which is only fourth from bottom. He 12th most tackles out of 14, seventh least dribble by, so bang average in terms of defending, 11th best tackle success rate out of 14, ninth most interceptions, second least fouls. So he didn't make a lot of fouls, only ninth in clearances, and 13th in most times dispossessed. So lots of big negatives for me in terms of numbers, which is why I didn't take him.
So I'm curious with your metrics, do you look at totals? Do you look per 90?
I looked at totals.
Okay. So maybe that's where it hurt Dewan a little bit because he only has like 2,000 minutes played this year, which isn't like super small, but it's small compared to, I'm sure, some other guys who were playing, like Palacios, for example, had almost 300 minutes more than DeJuan Jones. So I think it hurt him a little bit. I'm sure if he had more minutes this season, he'd probably bump up your list. But when I look at his scouting report that FBref puts together, it was very like he wasn't 99th percentile on anything, but he was like really good percentile across the board, which is what I liked the most. It was like, you know, 91st percentile in assists, 85th percentile in shot creating actions, 94th percentile in progressive carries. And then he even incorporated some defensive stuff as well. 91st percentile in blocks, 78th percentile in clearances. And when they look at the numbers there, it's on a per 90 basis. So it is kind of like flat across everybody that's qualified. Um, and also, this is just looking at fullbacks. So they'll look just kind of positionally, like where you fit, like with other people in your position. So this isn't like comparing center backs as well and like attackers, because then it would get skewed a bit. But he looked good across the board for me, and that's why I put him in. It wasn't a situation where you look at someone like Brooks Lennon, who obviously I love. You know, I'm an Atlanta guy, so I love Brooks Lennon. But he's like Brooks Lennon is like dominant in every attacking category, and then you look at the defense and it falls off a cliff. Like it's like 15th percentile is like the highest you'll see in a defensive statistic. So I went with DeJuan Jones because he was just solid across the board. I think we know even outside of statistics that DeJuan Jones is a very solid fullback, like across the board. He's a great defender. That's why he's in and around the national team right now. It's not for no reason.
Interesting. Okay. So you then went with Rodriguez and Mosquera.
Yeah.
Rodriguez, I'm gonna hold judgment on. Let that be whatever you take it. I'd like to know your meaning behind Mosquera.
So I think statistically he was pretty solid across the board. I don't think he was like the most dominant center back in the league, but he had strong defensive numbers and he was pretty strong in the attack as well. I mean, that's less important. I don't really focus as much on that, but you know, if it was used as I could use it as a differential if it were really close between people, but he was 86th percentile in tackles, 91st percentile in interceptions, 93rd percentile in aerials won. So statistically per 90, he was really dominant. Plus, he was a consistent center back on the team that is the supporter shield winners. So I kind of I didn't put like a number statistic behind like, you know, if their team was good, but I certainly like factored that in a little bit. Like I think if your team did well and you did well in the team to help your team get to that point, I factored that in. So because he was pretty dominant statistically on a team that was supporter shield champions, I put him there. I know that you could kind of go either way with him or Miazga. I know you have Miazga in there. I'll reserve judgment on Miazga because I mean, hint, hint, he's coming up very soon. But I think you can go either way with one of them. I went with Mosquera because his scouting report looked a little bit stronger than Miazga's.
So I definitely wanted a FCC center back in there. He was fantastic when they played against Red Bull when I was there. Very, very good. Great athleticism. He's a very good young, promising. They did really well to extend him. And again, I think this might be another one where his minutes hurt him because I only took people who had over 2,000 minutes, and he just barely crossed that threshold for me.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, because I took everything as a total, he did drop off a little bit. So he was dribbled by the 25th most times out of a total 34. He was 24th in total cards and 33rd in fouls. So when he was in, he was doing a lot of fouling. 24th in clearances, 30th in block shots, 29th in passing percentage, and 27th in total offsides won. So to me, I saw a lot more negative in there where he has tons of upside. He's a very good second defender, third defender for this group. But to me, Matt Miazga was the guy. Least dribble by player, best tackle success rate, sixth least fouls committed, seventh most clearances, 10th most headers won, 10th most block shots. That to me is, I mean, Matt Miazga right now is in conversation to be defender of the year, and rightfully so. The dude was an absolute beast. He dominated everything, and the only thing he couldn't dominate was the New York Red Bulls and the Tom Barlow. Tom Barlow absolutely, like, Tom Barlow got home, emptied his pockets, and Matt Miazga fell out. Like, it was wild. No, Matt Miazga to me has done exactly what we said he was supposed to do when he was rumored to make the move back. Remember we did that episode? We're like, oh, what does this mean? He has to come in and be an MLS best 11 center back. Get back into the national team. This is the way to do it. He has done everything right. I believe he deserves to be in the first team. I heard you're going to reserve judgment, so let me talk about Michael Boxall.
Wait, really quick before we talk about Boxall, while we're on the topic of Miazga and Mosquera, I do want to mention, it sounds like from the statistics that you're reading off, and I'm sure FCC fans can give us some more information on it, but it almost sounds like Mosquera is like the aggressive center back that's going up and trying to like kind of almost like the first point of contact, and then Miazga is kind of the staying back and cleaning up anything that gets by Mosquera. Just kind of based off of the statistics, it sounded like that because, you know, like more fouls, more cards, like more times dribbled pass. Maybe it sounds like Mosquera's kind of being more aggressive, trying to engage earlier on, and then Miazga sits back, and maybe that's why Miazga is not dribbled past as much because he's sitting deeper and he's kind of cleaning up anything that gets by Mosquera.
Totally fair. No, absolutely fair. But again, as you mentioned in the intro to what we're doing here, we're only going off numbers here, and this is what my numbers tell me. So, totally fair. Don't disagree with you. Michael Boxall.
Yeah, Michael, tell me about Michael Boxall.
Fifth least dribble by player, second best tackle success rate. Those two right there are very big. Tackle success rate is my most stressed stat at a ×2 multiplier. And when you have 34 players, as soon as you dip below like 15, that ×2 multiplier takes a big chunk out of you. So there were players who were relatively good who had a really bad tackle success rate. Yeimar Gomez Andrade is a great example of that, who is good pretty much everywhere except the amount of times he got beat on the dribble, and his passing percentage. And now he's not included in our top 3. Spoiler alert. Michael Boxall, second best tackle success rate, fifth least dribble by player, fifth most interceptions, and the most blocked shots. Those are the big key ones that I took away. But as well, from that, 11th in tackles total, 8th most clearances, 11th passing percentage, and 18th total offside ones. So he's kind of mid there, but the key ones again. So when I put this whole spreadsheet together way back in oh gosh, what was that? 2012 we made this? 2013?
Oh God, let's not try and figure out the year.
This is probably a decade old spreadsheet now, which is really cool. What a flex. When I put this together, it was with the idea of how do I get the ideal player for my team? And my ideal player was somebody who won the ball in the air, was successful in 1v1 challenges and tackling, was strong in possession, and then was able to read passing lanes, cut passing lanes, read attackers, and intercept the ball. So that's where my stress stats come from: headers won, interceptions, and tackle success rate. Everything else is, just stuff I think center backs should be able to do, and it's included in there. But those are the big ones for me. So if you're very, very good in those three, then you are good for me. So that is where Michael Boxall fits in for my first team all on.
Okay. His scouting report is not super great on here. So, I mean, I'm sure it's not a big spoiler, but he's definitely not in my teams anywhere.
Yeah, but you also hated on Marcelo Silva last year, and now you look silly. So
Do I look silly?
yeah. Talk to me about your left back. Is it Akapo from San Jose? Is that right?
You mean right back?
Is it right back?
Yeah.
Okay, talk to me
I don't
about
know
your
how to
right back.
pronounce it. If it's Akapo or Akapo or
I'm thinking it's a capo. That sounds.
we're probably wrong. Let's just be honest. We're probably wrong. I imagine if you did take statistics for him, he probably was not great in your list because he literally just hit the 2K mark. He had 2,056 minutes. So if you're looking at totals and stuff, he's not going to rank very well up there. But he is very similar to DeJuan Jones in that he was just really well-rounded percentile wise across the board. I mean, I think maybe a little bit different than DeJuan Jones. I think he was heavier defensively than he was offensively because he was 95th percentile in interceptions, 95th percentile in clearances, 93rd percentile in aerials won, 82nd percentile in tackles. I mean, he was statistically per 90, he was dominant at right back. Like he was fantastic defensively. And maybe that's a product of the system or whatever. I don't know. I don't watch San Jose every week. I mean, I don't really watch San Jose at all, to be honest, even though I'm backing them this season. But yeah, he was dominant defensively and while he wasn't super dominant going forward, I mean, he still was able to contribute. I mean, he was 82nd percentile in progressive carries. He was 86th percentile in successful take-ons. He was 79th percentile in non-penalty goals. 90th percentile in shots total. So really solid defensively at the back, and then was able to contribute a bit going forward. I mean, it seemed like he was just super well rounded and had a really strong season. Just, I'm guessing statistically on your lists, he's not going to rank probably very well because he probably was like, I mean, maybe 1,000 minutes, almost 1,000 minutes less than other people like that. That'll definitely hurt him on your chart.
So, my 2,000 minutes was only for the center backs. The right backs and left backs needed 1,500, so he got in
That
there
makes
no
sense.
problem. Um, Also, my stats only include when they played in that position. So if he played in the center back role or as a left back at times, it didn't count. So I have him at 1903 minutes. And funny enough, he actually is the first guy out, second guy out of my stats. So he averaged an 8.21 when my third team guy averages 7.86. So he's right in the mix. Him and looks like maybe Jake Nerwinski. Is that
Jake Nerwinski.
no DJ Taylor, another Minnesota boy.
You like your
Um,
Minnesota boys. Are
listen,
you sure they're your enemy of the pod?
I have to be nice, man. I slandered them. They're gonna miss the playoffs because I slandered them. I got to be nice now. No, so he's right up there for me. He's got decent stats in good areas. So third most successful dribbles, which is a stress stats. Third most crosses block. Second most clearances. First most interceptions. Fifth best tackle success rate. Like I said, he was right in there. Just the guys I had were first and second at pretty much every go there. Did I talk about Shaq Moore already?
No.
And did I talk about Diego Palacios? I can't remember.
You might have briefly talked about Palacios.
Okay, well, let's go through them both again because you've hit all of your defenders.
Yep.
Here. Shaq Moore for me, most tackles, best tackle success rate, most crosses blocked, second most successful dribbles, second most accurate long balls, fourth most crosses completed. Shaq Moore, an absolute tank of a human being. Basically top percentile. He just beat out my number two guy. Him and the number two guy basically went back and forth, but that tackle success rate again being a double stress stat really helped him out because the guy who finished in the second place spot, who I'm not going to spoil, see how I'm being smart about that. was in sixth in that category, and that double multiplier brought him down. But again, I think it's a really good shout. I think Nashville have been really, really good. We know that they're always defensively sound, but he's also been really good going forward as well, right? So I don't think it's a bad spot here for Shaq. I think it's well deserved. Another guy who needed to come back and get his career going after being kind of a bench guy, bench rotation guy in Spain. So happy for him. Think he's done really well, very deserving of it. Diego Palacios, same deal. Most tackles, second best tackle success rate, most interceptions, second most crosses blocked, sixth most successful dribbles, best passing percentage. You know, all over the shop, this Diego Palacios lad was. A 5.77 average when the next closest guy was 6.24. Yeah, very, very strong in those areas where, again, the guy who finished below him probably got hurt because he was in the stress stats. Palacios was better in all three. So that's where he separates himself. I really liked Diego Palacios from day one since he's been in MLS with LAFC, and I think he has just solidified himself as one of the best left backs in the league, especially with Kai Wagner now on the way out. Somebody needs to step up and take that role. I think Diego Palacios is that guy. Now, I just want to put it out there. I am not making that prediction in our preseason prediction rankings, which means that whatever jinx or whatever people think that I am putting on teams or players, it does not apply with what I just said. So do not come for me if it turns out that way.
Yeah, I agree with you fully on Palacios. I mean, I'm not spoiling anything, so I'm not going to comment on anything more than that.
Great. What I do want you to comment on is your pick for Aiden Morris at center mid you got there.
Yeah, I figured that one.
And Leuven.
Leuven was an easy one for me. I mean, he was, in my opinion, the engine for St. Louis this season. I think he made things happen for them, especially going forward. In his percentiles were, I mean, fantastic going forward. I mean, you will find guys who played in that midfield position who will look more dominant in the attack, like Ricky Puig. But the things that put Leuven ahead for me was that he also did some work defensively, and like not just little bits. Like he has solid defensive numbers from what I'm seeing here. But going forward, I mean, he was 97th percentile in shots total, 98th percentile in assists, 97th percentile in shot creating actions versus midfielders, which it's basically 8-6, I think is what it's comparing. So this isn't including like attacking midfielders. So if I'm sure if you include that, he would drop percentile wise, but I think it makes sense to compare him to other midfielders. I think he was probably in the 8 role most often. In terms of like passing and ball control, 98th percentile on successful take-ons, 93rd percentile on progressive passes. I mean, that and the shot creating actions to me said a lot that he was getting the attack going. Like he was the engine making things happen in the attack. And then, like I said before, he wasn't a slug on defense. He was not someone who was just not going to track back. He was 88th percentile in blocks, 68th percentile in tackles, 63rd percentile in clearances. Like, I don't necessarily think that he was tasked with like the guy that's got to, drop back and make all the defensive plays. And yet he was still really solid in those numbers. I mean, he's not one of those guys that's like can't get above the 10th percentile in any of those defensive statistics. So I really liked the fact that he was so well rounded, and I thought he was super, super crucial to St. Louis being as successful as they were. But I probably spent too much time on him because I know Aiden Morris is probably the more controversial one. But his statistics look so good this year, like pretty well rounded across the board. I probably could have put somebody else ahead of Aiden Morris here, but I liked how well rounded he looked in the attack. Nothing like too crazy in terms of his percentiles. There's nothing where he's like 90th percentile or anything, but he was solid across the board, like 71st percentile in shot creating actions and 73rd percentile in non-penalty goals. So he was still contributing. He was really good with passing, 98th percentile in pass completion percentage and 94th percentile in passes attempted. So he was really on the ball a lot, making a lot of good passes. And then was able to contribute as well defensively a little bit. 95th percentile in tackles and 85th percentile in interceptions. I really liked the fact that he was well rounded across the board. And I felt like the 8-6 rule, like there weren't a ton of guys that were jumping off the page for me. Like there's obviously like there's a couple of guys who are really good in attack, really poor in defense, and vice versa. But I really like the guys that are well rounded, and Aiden Morris kind of just fit that based on his scouting report.
Okay, so I've got more controversy for you,
Okay.
and I will explain why after I say it. So
Okay.
we can get a sound clip, and then I'll explain it, and we can get some engagement. Edward Leuven is the worst ranked center mid in my sheet, and here's why.
Okay.
I have a very specific threshold for defensive center mids and attacking center mids, and it really, really minimizes the impact of proper number eights like you brought in with Leuven, and that's exactly who he is. So I am not disagreeing with your selection of Leuven in the slightest, but in my shape, where I have a proper number 6 and a proper number 10, Edward Leuven does not cut the bill for either.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, your formation, he has no like you're not taking out a number 10 to put Leuven in there. And he doesn't do enough in defense that you could put him as a 6. So I get that. It's just that's why I kept it vague, because like I'm not sending out a team that's necessarily going to win games. I'm just putting together who I think is the best relatively around those positions.
Right, and that's what I'm doing. My team is statistically set up to be very good in a very specific play style that I like to run. So, hold
Well,
on.
how dare you have your own opinion? You can
Yeah,
only have the opinion of the person who is currently typing out the angry message to us right now.
love it. Um, and then Aiden Morris was very close. Aiden Morris was quick look here. Aiden Morris was next guy in to my final 6, so he was 7. So very, very close. I liked Aiden Morris a lot. Next year, he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
But
he got
again,
that breakout year we were expecting from him this year. Great
yeah,
year from him.
yeah. But he did a lot of work for Columbus, which involved him playing forward more. So he was dispossessed 18th most out of 28, which really hurt him. Very good in interceptions, mid in his tackle success rate, which is fine. 30th most dribbled by player. That's what got him. If he sticks, because he had the most tackles won. He was a fantastic defender, but he also got beat the most, which is why his tackle success rate is relatively mid. But if he comes in next year and continues to tackle the way he does, and then he doesn't even need to win the ball, but if he can just force them to go backwards a quarter more of the time, this dude's first team, no question. So, for me, the guy who did it was Artur. So Artur for Houston has been an absolute rock. 5th most tackles of all the defensive mids I looked at, 4th least dribbled by player, the best tackle success rate of all of them, the 5th most interceptions, the 5th best passing percentage. And again, when your top 5 out of 34 in all the key stats that I look at, that's not an anomaly, right? This dude's an absolute stud. There's a reason that Benny loves him so much, and there's a reason Houston are the way they are this year. He was such a big part of that, and I think we knew about this when he was with Columbus. He was the same way, and then he had that injury, and he didn't get back to it. Didn't get back to it. And now he's finally fully there. This dude is a fantastic number 6. The dude is a massive piece for Houston, and I truly think that Houston go as far as they want, as they will go through the playoffs as far as Artur will take them. Artur is the engine. He is the runner. He is the man for Houston.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to argue there because I'm gonna reserve judgment. But surprisingly, I don't want to say surprisingly because I don't think he's good, but surprisingly in that it felt quiet that he was just quietly really solid back there.
I will tell you, if he plays in LA, New York, Miami, this dude's the most talked about player in the league.
Oh, we talk about him like we talk about Gaston Brugman.
Yep. 100%. It is wild. So I am very excited that his stats brought him there because he deserved it, right? Um, I think we're relatively good as we go forward here. So, again, I think it's more of a shape reason for any of our disagreements for the pieces as we go forward. We both have Bouanga, who leads the Golden Boot, right? Most dribbles completed. I mean, you just watch him play, and we know
He
what he
had to
looks like,
be.
right?
He had to be in there. That was not a question.
Yeah. Then you've got Cucho Hernandez, 15th in goals. He made up 23% of Columbus's goals this year. One of every 4 goals Columbus scored was from Cucho Hernandez. 11 assists as well, which is the same number as Hani Mukhtar, who people are just bawling their eyes out over to be an MVP candidate. Cucho has the same exact numbers in 500 minutes less. Where is his conversation in this? I mean, goodness me.
Honestly, I could not believe how strong of a season Cucho had because I just heard nothing. Like I remember when Cucho first came in and he was lighting it up and he was constantly the talk of every conversation. It was like Cucho Hernandez. And then it was like he got a little cold towards the end of the last season. Maybe it was a little slow to start things up this season. And then just nobody talked about him. I mean, maybe the messy stuff doesn't help, but he has been quietly so good this season across the board. Like even like you said, outside of just scoring goals, he's already been solid there. But then 11 assists is crazy from a striker. That's so well rounded.
It's unbelievable. And again, Hani is a different beast because he's very withdrawn a lot. He plays as a striker, but he drops off consistently. Um, but Hani makes up 38% of Nashville's goals. So once again, Nashville go as far as Hani take him, right? I also had Thiago Almada in there, most fouls drawn, second most goals, most dribbles completed, key passes, second best passing percentage, most assists. I mean, the list goes on, right? We know about Thiago Almada. That is not a, it's not a
you don't have to argue to get him in.
Thank you. I was trying to think about the right way to put it in.
Yeah.
And then the last one I have again, because you don't really have a right winger, you have more attacking midfielders. Christian Espinoza, dude. Third most shots, second most goals, second most dribbles completed, most crosses completed, most assists. The dude's scoring goals. He's a great fantasy option, by the way. 13 million fantasy. So, no, the dude, again, San Jose running through Christian Espinoza, especially the early part of the year when they got hot, early. Espinoza was their guy. So, definitely very well deserving, I think. Again, I think our attackers are pretty good. Our defenders are what we're going to need to talk about. So, any disagreements to something I said?
I don't want to take the spotlight away in case you're going to talk about him soon, and I sure hope you do. But a little bit surprised to not see Lucia Costa in there because, I mean, maybe statistically he might have been like a little bit worse than the other ones, but I feel like you got to factor in some weight that he's basically the face of the team that won the supporter shield this year. I mean, it was hard for me. Like he was one of the first names I had in my team sheet, and statistically he was super strong as well. I mean, maybe not as strong as some other players, but he was certainly strong enough, in my opinion, to be in the first team. And I know the shape doesn't necessarily work with how you have it set up, but
well, and that's exactly it. Is my shape took away from his ability to be here, right? Thiago Almada statistically just better than him in every key statistic that I looked at.
I won't argue with that on that one. I'm biased towards Thiago
Almada. And you could, and I would defend it. Like, and I hate giving your players praise. However, you take Lucia Costa out of Cincinnati, I think that they fare better than if you take Thiago Almada out of Atlanta.
Yeah,
you take both of those guys out. I think FCC are a better team without him than Almada is, which means that Almada did more on his own as a player than Lucci did, which also helped flip things. I mean, statistically, it wasn't really even close. It was 2.96 to 5.67. Like it wasn't really close, but because of the way I set things up. However, we'll move on to team two and I can explain more.
Yeah, I imagined he was going to be there. But
Yeah.
should we go to team two?
It was like this, right? It was like that. I'll move on to
It's
team
hard.
two.
There's a group of attacking players that it's like somebody's got to be left off somewhere.
Well, and this is why we need more than just one team. Imagine trying to pick between all of these attacking midfielders for one position or at most two positions.
Yeah,
That's
but you're still
ridiculous.
picking for the best team. I'm sure the guys that end up on the second team, they may not be happy that they're on the second team. They want to be on the first team. But anyway,